let's get some good news back on board as we go back from America to Britain, where only good things happen, because we live in blimey, Barmy Britain.
Have you taken a look outside the window recently?
Yes, and everything's absolutely balmy out there. It's so ridiculous. We live in a stupid country. Yeah, we live in a very stupid country.
We're going to go full Mike Graham there and be like, it's mental. They've lost it. They've lost the bloody plot.
They've lost their marbles, I tell you. The left have gone absolutely bonkers. Yeah.
You were at risk of getting there.
I was at risk of getting there. But for something that isn't bonkers, you should watch our Politics of Skyrim video, which is doing quite well.
That was absolutely bonkers. Hold on. If there's ever a word where it's appropriate.
This was a very sensible discussion between four very well-grounded and very well-adjusted individuals who had a reasonable and rational discussion. Rory, in particular, showed, I think, his more thoughtful side.
Yeah, the skooma really brought out the rationality.
It really did. This was a really fun discussion that we had where you get to see me dressed up as an average windmill owner, Connor dressed up as some kind of druid, Josh dressed up in his Sunday best, and Rory dressed as a horse. So if you're interested in that, we also talk about Skyrim in it. If you're interested in that, you can watch it on the website. £5 a month, you know the deal. Do it now. Sign up. Or else. That's not a legally actionable threat, by the way. But do it. Anyway, so following on from the sort of thing that Callum was talking about Le Contrat Social, there's been another addition made to Le Contrat Social, which is if you are foreign and in England, you will get out of prison early.
You serious?
Well, there's some additions I need to make to that. I need to flesh it out a little bit,
okay.
But that's kind of...
Yeah, we wouldn't want to be weird, would we?
No, we wouldn't want to be weird. There's some qualifiers to that.
Is it because of the shortage of prison places?
Yes. So the Ministry of Justice has been reporting recently that they've almost run out of prison cells in autumn when the number of spare places in the male jail estate fell to within 300 of its capacity. The number of prisons in England and Wales has risen by 6,000 since the start of 2023 to stand above 88,000, just 1,000 short of the maximum permitted level, and there are 10,500 foreign nationals in English and Welsh prisons. Over 10% of our prisoners are foreigners,
right,
who shouldn't have been here in the first place.
So according to far-right outlets like the US's database on global crime, we saw last year, in one of the contemplations that I did with Josh and Dan, that the UK is number 1 in Europe and number 4 in the world for crimes committed by people of foreign origin.
Mm-hmm.
So I know it's a mad idea. Could we just not import criminals?
That's a good question. No, we have to for the economy. The NHS won't survive without it, but we can deport them early if they're in prison. Right. Is the plan so far? This is the stated plan from the government, and as we know, the Tory government, when they say they'll do something, they definitely will do something. Or is it the other way around? No, it's definitely they will do this. So
they're just going to let them all out early.
Alex Chalk has said that it's a deportation scheme, saying it's right that foreign criminals are punished, but it cannot be right that some are sat in prison costing taxpayers £47,000 per year when they could be deported. That's an excellent point. And I also say that foreign nationals in general shouldn't cost me far more than that by being able to come over here and get immediate benefits and social housing and be able to push wages down through illegal work. But that's a different subject, presumably. So under this scheme, overseas citizens can be freed from UK jails and deported to their homelands up to 18 months earlier than a British prisoner would be released if serving the same sentence. It means that if a British man and a Polish man run a drugs gang together and both get 6-year sentences, the Briton would serve 3 years in jail, while the Pole would only serve 1.5 years before being sent home. And when getting home, he wouldn't have to serve time in Poland, but would be barred from returning to the UK. I like the choice of nationalities in this scheme that they've come up with here, because I doubt it's going to be...
Damn Poles.
Yeah, damn Poles coming over here, running our drugs rings.
Question, why does it take 18 months to fuel a plane? Because that's the only reason I would guess.
That's a good question.
They'd be in prison over here for 18 months rather than just deported immediately after walking out the court.
I mean, we've learned from France's example, their amendment to Le Contrat Social, you can just deport these people for being not supposed to be here, even if they've not technically committed any crimes, barring the crime of entering the country illegally. And when the ECHR says, no, think about the human rights, you can say made up. made up,
Not real.
not real.
Bye.
Goodbye, get out of our country. You can just do that, but no, instead they have to serve half of the prison term here. That's a very
We
good
have
question.
To pay for?
Yes.
Right.
So people have been criticizing this, saying that the government has failed to produce any estimate of how many foreign national prisoners would be sent home earlier following the rule change, or how many prison places would be freed up. Previously, the early removal scheme allowed releases of up to 12 months before the release date. It applies to foreign nationals serving fixed-term sentences of any length, including for violent or sexual offences, but excluding terrorism. We need to keep those in our prisons. Although, to be fair, if the agreement is that we release them early and then wherever we send them to, don't immediately have to put them in prison, I can see a little bit of logic to that, because you would just be releasing them early to traffic themselves back into the country and commit more terrorism.
Or we could prevent them from getting back into the country. Or even better, we could follow the British government, the British public's preference, which is, I think, upwards about 64% have just said deliver death penalty to convicted terrorists. That would clear out the prisons pretty quickly.
Have you thought about how the international community might react to such a thing, though?
There will be weeping and gnashing of teeth, which makes me want to do it a lot more.
Well, that's true. But other measures to tackle the prison capacity crisis include an 18-day early release scheme, a legal presumption that sentences of less than 12 months will be served in the community instead of in prison. So if you're sentenced to less than 12 months, well, congratulations, you get off scot-free. Congratulations, barely even a crime at this point. Just make sure to lead some old ladies across the road and you'll be fit as a fiddle.
So grievous bodily harm, that's not a crime anymore, if you're foreign.
If you're foreign and if you're about to be served under 12 months.
Yeah. Just assault people.
just assault.
This is not legal advice.
But
it is legal.
It is legal as stated by the British government.
Hi folks, we've rolled out a new feature on the website, which is the ability to pay for an individual piece of content. So usually it's £5 a month every month to subscribe to all of the content on the website. But I appreciate there are going to be people who simply don't want to do that. They would be interested instead in purchasing a single piece of content for a lower amount, and they've got a particular niche that they're interested in watching. And so they don't want every single piece of content. They just want this one thing. So we've introduced this function where you can just simply purchase the one thing for £1.89, which I think is about $2.30 at the current exchange rates. And then that's just yours forever. So there's no sort of commitment there. There's no rolling subscription. It's just that one thing. So that's an option now that's on the website. It's completely live. It's completely available. And please go and enjoy it. And we'll see you all very soon.
And plans to rent prison cells abroad as well. So this is the new. I always say we always get a new.
There's a new
development
line from Nick to foreign prison.
to the Albanian government to rent out their prison cells.
To put Albanians in, which, trust me, they'll stay there for 5 minutes.
Maybe. I mean, if it's anything like Rwanda, presumably we send hundreds of millions of pounds, hundreds of £1 million to a foreign government, and they don't actually do anything because we don't send them anyone. Once again, so many economic treatises from a few hundred years ago or the mid-century and onwards didn't have to be this thick. They could have just been one page saying, import Africans. That could have, and then line go up forever.
Trust me, bro.
It works. It just works. Judges have also been asked to bail newly convicted criminals awaiting sentence. There you go. The MOJ is also paying Albania £8 million to take up to 200 of their most dangerous prisoners, including 17 lifers who will complete their sentences in their home country jails. Would have been nice if they weren't here to begin with. Among those identified for return is Kochi Selamaj, 36, the murderer of Sabina Nessa, a 28-year-old schoolteacher. Why couldn't we just hang him? That's an excellent question.
Also, why would it take so long to return him to Albania, considering we know Albania is a safe, if not very nice, country?
We also have that colony of Kosovo we could just use. It's also full of Albanians.
Just stick them all on Pitcairn. It's already a prison island. Not a bad idea.
I don't know. We have Kosovo for something. I don't know what for. So
It's like a decoration. It's an accessory.
just to annoy the Serbs.
We accessorize with our Kosovo colony. He was jailed for a minimum of 36 years for beating and strangling her to death in a park in southeast London. Once again, there's an easy way. If we're going to imprison him for 36 years and then export him back to Albania, we could solve the problem permanently.
Isn't it funny as well, it's darkly comedic, I suppose, how the Sarah Everard case was round-the-clock coverage because he was a police officer that murdered and raped her. But this fella, the Sabina Nessa case, as soon as she went missing and they were looking for the guy, it was headline news as another case of male violence. Once we heard he was an Albanian criminal, dropped out the headlines. Curious that, isn't it?
Always happens, every single time. Although at least the CNN's editorial department will get some fun lightening up pictures if they ever report on similar events. So this man has so far only served 2 years, but it would mean the UK paying Albania £400,000 to imprison him for the remaining 34 years of his sentence.
Why?
We're literally paying them so that they'll imprison him for us. But thankfully, it would be a saving of £1.5 million because it would be cost 1.9 million if he remained in a UK jail. This whole thing is so absurd. You didn't have to be here in the first place. I know.
We were joking earlier. We can't go into the details. We were joking about making a film where the British government do go a bit insane, and the whole
and become the government that the Guardian thinks they are.
Yeah, and the joke was that even if we tried, this whole country would still end up buggering it up somehow completely. And it's just so perfect. Like, hey, what if we deport this guy to a foreign prison after he murders one of our people, and then we also pay them for it? But somehow that would still be a saving.
Because the UK government knocks on Albania's door and goes, listen, this guy is from here. Like, do you mind taking him back? They go, no.
Oh, he's a member of my family. Of course not.
No.
But it's also
no.
like...
And they go, okay, right, 50 quid. No. Right, 200 quid. No. What about 400 grand? Maybe. Maybe.
But all policy is made on purely material concerns. There's absolutely no consideration about what is just, what is wrong to inflict on the family grieving for Sabina Nessa, having to pay taxes to then support this program. No, you should just hang him. That's the right thing to do. It's not about economic efficiency. It's that he deserves to die. That's it.
And then close the borders as well. That would be a good thing. But I think one of the reasons, and this is something everybody is aware of, but it's always important to point out, one of the reasons it's so difficult to get rid of these people and why, even if there is a deportation scheme at half of the sentence being carried out that's planned, it'll never happen. It'll never happen because the government allows there to be legal sway with these insane and absurd NGOs whose their only existence is to make sure that illegal migrants stay in your country. Like Right to Remain, the name says it all. But you can go down here and they've just got a checklist. How to stay in the country if you're about to be deported. You can contact your MP. Check if there are legal arguments.
What do you mean, your MP?
Yeah.
What?
Or campaign the airline. Make sure the airline are harassed into knowing that if they actually deport anybody, that there will be consequences for them, so they refuse to deport anybody.
Make every single Dino aware of how cheap EasyJet is, so they book up all the tickets for that summer.
I'm still stuck on contact your MP. You don't have an MP. You're a foreigner.
Well, is that better or worse than being given advice from citizens' advice when you are not a citizen on how to stay in the country illegally?
Thank you, citizens' advice.
Thank you, citizens' advice. Very cool. Very cool. If you're living illegally in the UK, you might be able to apply to make your stay legal. Brilliant. You can also get hope returning to your home country if you want to. But why would you want to do that? They're not going to give you free housing and free benefits.
I love us being called a conspiracy theorist outlet when we point out things like this when it's on their bloody webpage.
Yep. And then maternity action, where if you've been refused asylum, but you happen to be pregnant, we'll make sure that you literally get financial support and housing. You can get in contact with us.
That will be beneficial
to
the upwards of 90% fighting age males currently in the hotels.
Yep, fantastic. Well, I mean, who are you to say they're male? That's very presumptuous of you. Or even that they're pregnant. It's pregnant people. Pregnant people.
I'm a male-presenting pregnant person.
That's right. I'm a Time Lord.
Have you got any proof of that? No. No, it's very, very racist.
Someone in the chat just goes, I am the MP now.
And then we could just look into the government statistics of how many people are detained or returned. Because there are some people, like myself, who have expressed some cynicism as to whether anybody will get deported. And some say, well, actually, in 2022, there were 3,860 enforced returns. Ignore that this year alone, we've had almost 29,000 people arrive on small boats, and that's small boats only.
Last year it was 38,000.
I think it was 48. Sorry. Last year it was 45,000.
Blimey, okay.
So 3,000 is a drop in the water. But then let's look at the handily provided government graphs about enforced returns. How many are being removed? How many are being sent home? Tell me, do you recognize a trend going on with these graphs?
They're going down.
They're going down.
Yeah.
They're going down a lot. See, we have the absolute valley here around lockdowns. So that's kind of understandable. But since lockdowns, they've just decided, why can't they stay? You know what? You guys toughed it out in lockdowns with us. We all had a pretty big mental health crisis during lockdowns. So congratulations. You've earned citizenship.
They're relying on voluntary returns from criminals. Something about this immigration policy somehow doesn't seem right.
Well, if you do voluntary, you get quite a lot of cash. So one of the guys I met in Afghanistan running the shop, he'd actually come all the way to the Netherlands, broken illegally to Europe, obviously. And then he offered to do the voluntary return scheme because they literally not only paid for his flights back to Afghanistan, they gave him $2,000 to start a business in Afghanistan, which is obviously like
a lot of money
wages.
over there.
So they gave him 8 months' wages to go and start a business. And he was like, sure.
But is there anything stopping him when he gets home from then going back into Europe, going to a different country and doing the exact same thing?
No.
Genius. And then who is it that's coming over our borders? Well, this was a recent report from a few weeks ago that I think you sent me, Connor.
Yep.
So thank you for that. Well, they come over on the small boats, and we've got literal terrorists coming through. So this was a manhunt after 6 suspected terrorists landed in Britain. The foreign national have links to Islamist groups and are believed to be backed by terror paymasters in Iran. The radical group arrived in the UK illegally from northern France weeks ago after traveling across Europe from Syria. No problem. Probably taking the tourist scene tour like we saw in Le Contrat Social. Yeah, maybe getting some photos at the Eiffel Tower, taking in some of the local cuisine and culture. Security services are monitoring the movements of 3 of the fugitives, but the others, believed to be using fake identity documents, have disappeared. This arrival brings 25 the number of terrorist suspects who have used smaller boats to enter Britain this year alone.
This was also on a week where, if you go by the weekly small boats reporting statistics the government puts on the website, for most of those days they were saying 0. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, that's because of the cold weather, nobody's crossing. I'm just starting to think they're just not bothering recording them at all.
In all likelihood, because even if we do record them and they get here and immediately put in an asylum claim, which means we can't deport them immediately for some reason, because made up international laws say that we can't, even though we could just say, that's made up, I'm going to do it anyway. And then they get refused. You would expect that if you get refused asylum in a country that you've broken into, that you would immediately be sent home. Well, no. There's 9 in 10 back in 2020 stayed anyway.
What, they just said we wanted to?
What are you going to do about it?
They just did. Figures released to The Guardian from the Oxford Migration Observatory show that 3,632 people who applied for asylum in 2020 were turned down and 314 were returned. That means up to 91% of those refused asylum in the UK were free to remain in the UK, compared with 81% in 2019. That was in 2020. Do you know how many enforced removals there were in 2021?
100?
113. So once again, continually goes down. And this is compared with 6,771 in 2010. And that was when I think that would have put the enforced removals above the net illegal migration that we were getting from the small boats at that time, because it was nowhere near the crisis it is now.
So they were higher on Tony Blair.
We literally destroyed our ability to deport people, or we stopped bothering. It's not like we don't have the police. I mean, we do pay them, but they're just not doing it. They're just not actually arresting people for being here illegally and then sending them off to the Home Office to be deported. It's not happening.
Yeah. And we're able to access the government statistics that they provide on how many foreign nationals are awaiting all of these asylum claims. It's as of June 2023, the total work in progress asylum caseload consisted of 215,500 cases. Of these, 138,000 cases were awaiting an initial decision. 5,100 were awaiting the outcome of an appeal, and approximately 41,200 cases were subject to removal action, of which presumably 10% at most might actually get an action done on that.
40,000 people need to be deported. We're probably going to deport 300.
And then the Home Office might just forget where they are. This is from 4 days ago. Thank you again, Connor, for sending me this. Home Office officials have admitted they do not know the whereabouts of more than 17,000 asylum seekers whose claims have been discontinued. Sorry, we just misplaced them.
By the looks of it, they're all in Swindon, so you should come check.
They fell down the back of the sofa.
We literally paid for their housing. That we put them in a hotel room. It has a number on the door.
Went missing, bro.
Just gone.
They've just gone. We knocked and nobody answered, so they mustn't be there anymore.
I love security.
Yeah, the number emerges. MPs discussed Rishi Sunak's target to eliminate the asylum backlog by the end of the year. So just forgetting where they are, I suppose, is one way of removing that backlog. Oh, the numbers vanished. The magic numbers went away, so it's fixed. Problem solved, guys.
In other
Mission
news,
accomplished.
you have new neighbours.
Yeah. Courtesy of Serco, probably. Home Office has withdrawn thousands of asylum applicants after claimants failed to respond. So the way that it works is that the officials told the committee that claims are withdrawn if asylum seekers fail to respond to 2 successive caseworker interview requests or questionnaires. So all you need to do, if you're an asylum seeker, is not respond to those twice in a row and you vanish off of the system completely, is what that sounds like to me.
Actually sounds pretty easy to be an international man of mystery. Just as long as you don't respond to the government letter, then
we'll send you a very strongly worded letter and then a follow-up to that very strongly worded letter, and then we'll let you off. Then we'll let you off completely. And don't worry, even if you do end up getting reported and somebody tries to enforce you to be to be deported from the country, all of these NGOs and a vast army of other ones will make sure that you are able to mount legal challenges to avoid it, or maybe even just harass the airline that they're going to use to stop them from sending you off. Fantastic. We live in a serious country. I'm so glad. And the only thing that I can produce as good news is that lots of Tories might quit.
There are tons.
That loads of them want to quit.
Former and current cabinet ministers as well. It's like Alok Sharma, Ben Wallace, Sajid Javid, so what? Like, all that lot.
So some of them are stating that they will, and I quote here, screw this for a game of soldiers. They're just going to up and leave because they hate the Tories. They hate being part of the Tories. Tories are useless. I would hate the Tories as well. Not that this is probably...
Part of me is very cynical. Where it's just like, oh man, I'm not going to have a job later, so I won't get paid to do nothing. Okay.
Well, tons of them are already standing down at the next election because they know they're going to get wiped out.
Well, that's my point. It's like, well, I had this pretty sweet job where I promised to do things, did nothing for years, 14 of them. And now that's coming to an end. Damn. It's like, yeah, that just makes me hate you even more.
Yeah, you've got a golden parachute straight into Goldman Sachs and the UN. Thank you so much for ruining the country and then getting rich doing so.
So nothing will be solved, nothing has been solved, and I'm very, very cynical that anybody will actually get deported, except maybe 2, who will probably accidentally turn out to be British nationals.
Doesn't have to be this way. Literally solve it tomorrow if we wanted. If you appreciated that episode from the podcast of the Lotus Eaters, you can go to lotuseaters.com to get access to all the premium content that's on the site, such as the Brokenomics series, this episode on Confessions of an Economic Hitman. If you'd like to find out what else is being put out, you can follow on Twitter at lotuseaters_com on Twitter. Thank you and goodbye.